Magic Treehouse, Book Number 18, Buffalo Before Breakfast by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 1, Teddy's Back. Arf, arf, arf. Jack finished trying his sneakers. Then he looked out his bedroom window. A small dog stood in the early sunlight. He had floppy ears and scrappy brown fur. "Teddy," said Jack. Just then, Annie ran into Jack's room. "Teddy's back," she said. "It's time." It was time for the second mission to help free the little dog from the spell. Jack threw his notebook and pencil into his backpack. Then he followed Annie downstairs and past the kitchens. Where are you two going?" "There," Mama called. "Outside," said Jack. "Breakfast will be ready soon," she said, "and Grandmother will be here any minute." "We'll be right back," said Jack. He loved his grandmother's visit. She was kind and funny, and she always taught them new things. Jack and Danny slipped out the front door. Teddy was waiting for them. "Arf, arf," he barked. "Hey, where did you go last week?" Jack asked. The small dog wagged his tail joyfully. Then he ran up the sidewalk. "Wait for us," Annie shouted. She and Jack followed Teddy up the street and into the Frog Creek woods. They ran between the trees. Wind rustled the leaves. Birds snooped from branch to branch. Teddy stopped at the rope ladder that hung from the tallest oak tree in the wood. At the top of the ladder was the magic treehouse. Jack and Annie stared up at it. "No sign of Morgan," said Annie. "Let's go up," said Jack. Annie picked up Teddy. She carried him carefully up the ladders. Jack climbed after her. Inside the treehouse, Teddy sniffed the slippers pocket watch on the floor. Beside it was the note that Morgan had written to Jack and Annie. Annie picked up the note and read it aloud. "This little dog is under a spell and needs your help. To free him, you must be given four special things. A gift from the ship lost at sea, a gift from the prairie blue, a gift from the forest far away, a gift from the kangaroo. Be brave, be wise, be careful." "We've got first special things," said Annie. "A gift from the ship lost at sea." "Yeah," said Jack. He picked up the silver pocket watch. The time on the watch was 2:20, the time the Titanic had sunk. Jack and Danny stared at the watch. "Arf, arf!" Teddy barking brought Jack back from his memories. "Okay," Jack said. He sighed and pushed his glasses into place. "Now it's time for gift from the prairie blue." "What's that mean?" said Annie. "I'm not sure," said Jack. He looked around the treehouse. "But I bet that book will take us there." He picked up the book in the corner. The cover was the picture of the wide prairies. The title was The Great Plains. "Ready?" Jack says. Teddy yamped and wagged his tails. "Let's go," said Annie. "The sooner we free Teddy, the better." Jack pointed at the cover. "I wish we could go there," he says. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2, Ocean of Grass. Early sunlight landed into the treehouse. The cold breeze smells of wild grass. "Oh man," said Jack. "Those are neat clothes." Their jeans and t-shirt had magically changed. Jack had on their buckskin shirts and pants. Annie wore the frayed buckskin dress. They both wear soft leather boots and cushioned caps. Jack's backpack was now leather bag. "I feel like a mountain man," he says. All you're missing is the mountain," said Annie. She pointed out the window. Jack and Teddy looked out. The treehouse sat in a lone trees in the vast golden prairies. The sun was rising in the distance. Wind whispered through the tall yellow grass. "Shh, shh, shh," it said. "We need a gift from the prairie blue," said Jack. "I bet that means the sky," said Annie, looking up. "Yep," said Jack. The sky was growing bluer as they watched. "But how are we supposed to get it?" "Just like last time," said Annie. "We have to wait till someone gave it to us." I don't see any sign of peoples out there," said Jack. He opened their books and read aloud. "A Great Plains are in the middle of the United States, before the 20th countries. These vast prairies covered nearly a fifth of America's land. Some called it an ocean of grass." Jack pulled out his notebook. "Come on," said Annie. She picked up Teddy's and carried him down the ladder. Jack quickly wrote Great Plains, lots of land. "Wow, this is like an ocean of grass," Annie called from below. Jack slipped the Great Plains book and his notebook into his leather bag and climbed down. When he stepped onto the ground, the grass came all the way up to his chest. It tickled his nose. Achoo!" she sneezed. "Let's go swimming in the grass ocean," said Annie. She started off with Teddy's under her arms. The winds blew gently as Jack hurried after her. All he could see was rolling wave of grass. They walked and walked and walked. Finally, they stopped and rested. "We could walk for months and never see anything but grass," said Jack. "Arf, arf." "Teddy say there's something great up ahead," said Annie. "You can't tell what he's saying," said Jack. "He's just barking." "I can't tell," said Annie. "Trust me." "But we can't walk all day," said Jack. "Come on," said Annie. "Just a little farther." She started walking again. "Oh, brother," said Jack. But he kept going through the tall, ripping grass. They went down the small slope, then up to the small rise. At the top of the rise, Jack rose. "Wow, that is great," he whispered. "Told you," said Annie. Chapter 3. Black Hawk. Jack stared at the circle of tapis ahead. Busy people in buskins move about the circle. Horses and ponies gazed nearby. Jack took out the research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in early research book and found a picture of the teepees. He read in in early research book. 1,800. Many different Native American types live on the Great Plains. The Lakotas were the largest type. They live mostly in the areas we now call North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Jack pulled out his notebook and wrote, early 1,800s, Lakotas were the largest type of Great Plains. Behind Jack and Danny, the horse neighed. They turned. The horse and riders were heading toward the teepee camp. The sun was very bright behind the riders. Jack could only see the outline of the bodies with the bow of quivers of arrow on his back. Jack quickly flipped through the book. He found a picture of the man on horseback carrying the bow and arrow. Below the picture, it says, Lakota's warriors. Jack read, everything changed for the Native American of the Great Plains after white settlers arrived in the mid-1800s. Fighting broke out between Lakota's warriors and white soldiers. By the end of the 1800s, the Lakotas were defeated. They lost their land and their old way of life. Jack looked back at the riders. The warriors was coming closer. Get down, he whispered. Why, said Annie. This might be a time when the Indians are fighting with the settler, said Jack. The grass rustled as the warrior passed by them. His horse neighed again. Arf, arf, shh, whispered Jack. But it was too late. The warrior had heard Teddy's barking. He galloped toward them, guiding his bow. Wait, shouted Jack. He jumped on from the grass. We come in peace, the rider howled. Now Jack saw that he was only the boy on the pony. He couldn't have been more than 10 or 11. Hey, you're just a kid, Annie said, smiling. The boy didn't smile back, but he did lower his bow while he stared at Annie. What's your name? She asked. Black Hawk, he said. Cool name, said Annie. We're Jack and Danny. We're just visiting. We live in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. Black Hawk nodded. Then he turned his pony around and started toward the Lakota camp. How can we come with you? Called Annie. Black Hawk looked back. Yes, he says. Meet my people. You mean your parents? Asked Annie. No, they died long ago, said Black Hawk. I live with my grandmother. Oh, I'd like to meet your grandmother, said Annie. I'm going to see my grandmother today, too. Black Hawk nudged his pony forward again. Annie followed with Teddy. Jack didn't move. What if the Lakotas are at war with the white sculptures? He worried. What if they think we're enemies? Annie, Jack called softly. We don't know if it's safe or not. But Annie just wait for him to come on. Jack sighed. He opened the research book and quickly flipped through the page. He wanted information about how to act with a Lakota. On one page, he read, good manners to the Lakota means speaking as few words as possible and sharing gifts when visiting. On other page, he read, the Lakotas admire those who do not show fears. Jack's favorite piece of information was holding up the two fingers means friends. Jack put the books away. He ran to catch up with Annie. Annie was telling Black Hawks all about their grandmother. The boy listened silently. Annie, Jack whispered, I just read that it's good manner to be quiet, and we should give and not show fears. Also, holding up two fingers means friends. Annie nodded. Got that? Said Jack. Sure, she said. No talking, no fear, no problem. Jack looked up. He caught his breath. Ahead of them, the people at the campsite had stopped what they were doing. All eyes were turned to Jack and Danny. Jack quickly held up two fingers. Annie did the same. Chapter 4. Good Manners. Black Hawk led Jack and Danny toward the teepees, and everyone kept watching them. Jack couldn't tell what anyone was thinking. No one looked angry, but no one looked happy either. Jack wondered how to appear brave. He glanced at Annie. She walked tall and straight. Her chin was up. Her face was calm. Jack straightened his shoulders. He lifted his chin, and he felt braver. Black Hawk stopped and slid off his pony. The pony headed for the gazing pastures. Then Black Hawk led them to a teepee. It was covered with buffaloes this side. My grandmother is inside, Black Hawk says to Jack and Danny. Inside the teepee looked like a small round room. A fire burned in the center. Smoke rose through the holes at the top. An old woman sat on the animal skin. She was sawing bread on the moccasins. She looked up at Jack and Danny. Grandmother, said Black Hawk. This is Jack and Danny from Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. Jack and Danny both held up the 2 fingers for friends, and Grandmother raised 2 fingers also. Then Jack took off his coonskin cap. He gave it to Grandmother. She put the caps on her head, then laughed. Jack and Danny laughed too. Grandmother's laughter and kind face reminded Jack of his own grandmother. She wished to learn our way, she said. Jack and Danny nodded. Jack could tell she was wise. Grandmother stood and left the teepee. They followed her. Outside, everyone was busy again. They all seemed to know that Jack and Danny weren't enemies. Jack looked around the camp. Men and boys carved boughs. Women and girls pounded meat and sewed clothes. One girl was adding cloth to the buckskin shirt. The bear's clothes gave her a strength of the bear, said Grandmother. She will sew on hawk feathers, eat teeth, and porcupine quill too, and will give her a power of the animal. Jack pulled out his notebook and wrote, "Sew bear clothes to shirts. I have strong animal powers when I go on the buffalo hunt." Jack, a Black Hawk, said proudly. "What do you mean?" asked Jack. "I will show you," said Black Hawk. "Wait." Black Hawk went back inside the teepee, and he turned to Grandmother. "What does he hunt the buffalo? Why does he hunt a buffalo?" she asked. "The buffalo gives our people many gifts," said the old woman. "Food from his body, teeth from his skins, tool from his bones." Jack started making the list. "Cup for his horn," Grandmother went on. "Rope for his hair, even winter sled from his rib." Jack finished his list. Buffalo, skin, teepee, bones, tools, horns, cup, hair, rope, rib, sled. "That reminds me of the seal hunters in the Arctic," said Annie. "He used all the gift from the seal body. He didn't waste a thing." Just then, Teddy began growling and barking. Jack and Danny turned around. They both gasped. Coming out of Grandmother's teepee was a huge wolf. Chapter 5. Sunlight and Midnight. The wolf had yellow eyes and sharp teeth. Teddy snarled and barked. Annie rushed forward to grab a little dog. Suddenly the wolf stood up on its hind leg. "Yikes," said Annie. She leaped back. Then she and Jack started to laugh. The fierce wolf was Black Hawk wearing a wolf hide. His hide came out through the slit near the wolf's neck. He gave Jack and Danny a little smile. "That was the great wolf suit," said Annie. "Why do you wear that?" asked Jack. "The wolf is the most powerful hunter of the buffalo," said Black Hawk. "When I wear his skins, I fold his ranks." "Wow," said Annie. Black Hawk looked at his grandmother. "May I show them a buffalo now?" he asked. "Only show," said grandmother. "Do not hunt. We have enough meat today." She looked back at Jack and Danny. "Locust has never taken more buffalo than we need," she said. "That's good," said Annie. Black Hawk handed his wolf skins to grandmother. Then he ran to the grazing ponies. He climbed on his. Then he hurried 2 ponies, one black and one yellow, over to Jack and Danny. "Hi, Midnight, hi, Sunlight," said Annie, naming the pony. She patted her noses. "Annie," whispered Jack, "how are we going to ride without saddle or reins?" "Just hold onto their manes," she says, "and grip with your legs. Watch." Annie threw her arms around Midnight neck. She slugged her legs over the pony back and pulled herself up. "I'll carry Teddy's in the back," Annie says. Jack picked up Teddy's and slipped him inside the leather bag. He handed it to Annie, who hung it over her shoulders. Teddy's head peeked out of the bag. "Arf!" Teddy barked. Grippy up, Midnight," said Annie. The pony started to walk away. "Wait," said Jack. He turned to Black Hawk. "He just has a few questions." Black Hawk let out a wild whoop and took up too. Jack took a deep breath. He threw his arms around Sunlight's neck. Then she slugged his legs over the pony's back. The pony started to move. Wait," said Jack. He hopped on one foot, trying to keep up. The pony stopped. Slowly, Jack pulled himself onto Sunlight's back. He gripped the pony's mane. Then he carefully reached up and pushed his glasses into place. He looked over his shoulders. Grandmother was watching it. She nodded at him. "Look at how people admire those who do not show fear," Jack remembered. He liked grandmother. He wanted her to admire him. He let out a wild whoop, and sunlight took off like a wind. The whoop made Jack feel braver. He held tightly to Sunlight's mane. They caught up with Black Hawk and Annie, and together they all rode through the tall grass. A shadow of clouds swept over the plains. They looked like a dark bird spreading with their wings. Black Hawk's pony stopped at the top of the grassy slope. Sunlight at Midnight howled right behind him. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. Before them were thousands and thousands of grazing buffalo. Chapter 6, Stampede. "Wow," whispered Jack and Danny together. Black Hawk looked silently at gazing buffalo. "Hand me the research book," said Jack. Annie lifted Teddy out of the bags. Then she slipped the books out and gave it to Jack. He found the picture of the buffalo heart. He read it to himself. "The true name of buffalo is Bison, and at the beginning of the 1800s, there were 40 million bisons on the Great Plains. 100 years later, there was less than 300. Almost all had been killed by white hunters and soldiers." Jack looked back at the beast herd. As far as he could, there was nothing but buffalo. Now Jack knew for certain they came to the time before the white settler and soldiers had arrived, before the end of the great buffalo herd. "I've been on many hunts," Black Hawk said, his eyes still on the buffalo. "Were you scared?" said Jack. Black Hawk shook his head. You're really brave," said Annie. Black Hawk smiled proudly. I know I will show you how a brave hunters move, he says. He slipped off his pony. Wait, your grandmother said not to hunt, said Annie. Plus, you don't have your wolf suit. I'm not afraid, said Black Hawk. I don't think you should go down there, said Jack. There's no grown-up around. But Black Hawk wasn't listening. He began creeping on all four toward the buffalo. I have a feeling something bad is going to happen, said Annie. Jack had the same feeling. He looked back at the bow. The bow can weigh 2,000 pounds and stand 6 feet high. If one becomes alarmed by hunters, he might start running and set up a terrifying stampede. Jack looked back at Black Hawk. He was creeping closer and closer to the herd. Jack's heart pounded. He wanted to shout, "Come back!" but he didn't want to scare any of huge forest-looking animals. Keeping his eyes on Black Hawk, Jack handed the plain books to Annie. She slid it back into the bag beside Teddy. Black Hawk stopped just as she was passing the nervous buffalo. His eyes squeezed shut. His nose wrinkled up. His mouth open. What is he doing?" asked Jack. Achoo! Black Hawk sneezed. Uh-oh, said Annie. The huge buffalo jerked its head up. It made a low moaning sound. Then it pointed in horns and charged. "Watch out!" cried Jack. Black Hawk threw himself out of the way of charging buffalo. A ripple went through the herd as other surly animals looked up. Suddenly, Teddy jumped out of Annie's arms. He landed in the tall grass and ran toward the buffalo. "Teddy!" shouted Annie. The dog tore down the hill. He bounded along the edge of the herd, barking furiously. "Teddy, come back!" cried Annie. She slipped off her pony and ran after Teddy. Jack tried to see Black Hawk. The boy was still dodging the running buffalo. He looked tired. Jack took a deep breath. "Go to Black Hawk," he says, nudging Sunlight with his knees. The golden ponies charged down the slope. He ran between the buffalo. "Black Hawk!" he shouted. Black Hawk started running toward the Sunlight. The buffalo soared behind him. Sunlight slowed as Black Hawk got near. The boy threw himself over the golden pony's back. He held on to Jack as Sunlight veered away from the buffalo and ran back up the slope. "Where's Annie?" Jack cried as they reached the top. "There," said Black Hawk, pointing. Annie was surrounded by buffalo. Calm buffalo. She was patting them and talking to them. The buffalo near her had stopped running too. The one beyond those started to come down. Then others, until all buffalo had stopped running. They began gazing again as if nothing had happened. Chapter 7. White Buffalo Woman. "She's a good medicine," said Black Hawk. "Annie doesn't have any medicine. Jack says she just has a way with animals." Black Hawk was silent. He climbed back on his waiting pony. Then he rode down toward Annie. Jack followed. Annie's pony trailed behind. Annie turned to Jack and Black Hawk as they rode up to her. On her face was the look of amazement. "You don't believe what happened," she said. "You stopped the stampede," said Black Hawk. "But it wasn't just me," said Annie. "What do you mean?" asked Jack. "I was trying to find Teddy," said Annie, "and I've got in the way of the buffalo. I couldn't escape, so I held up my hands and shouted, 'Stop!' Then out of nowhere, the beautiful lady in the white leather dress came to help me." "You saw the lady in white?" asked Black Hawk. His eyes had grown wide. "Yes," said Annie. "She held up her hands, and the buffalo stopped running. Then she disappeared." Where's Teddy? Said Jack. Annie gasped. I don't know. I forgot about him. She says, Teddy! Teddy! Arf, arf! The little dog came bounding out of the grass toward them. Annie scooped him up. Teddy licked her face all over. Where did you go? Annie asked him. Didn't you see the beautiful lady too? That lady does not live on this earth, Black Hawk said softly. What do you mean? Said Annie. She saw the spirit of White Buffalo Woman, he said. What did you mean, spirit? Said Jack. What, you mean like a ghost? Black Hawk turned his pony around. Let us go back, he says. We must tell grandmother. Annie pulled Teddy's in Jack's bag. Then she climbed on her ponies, and they took off. Behind them, the buffalo grazed peacefully on the plain. On her ponies, and they took off. Behind them, the buffalo grazed peacefully on the plain. On her ponies, and they took off. Behind them, the buffalo grazed peacefully on the plain. On her ponies, and they took off. Behind them, the buffalo grazed peacefully on the plain. On her ponies, and they took off. Behind them, the buffalo grazed peacefully on the plain. On her ponies, and they took off. Behind them, the buffalo grazed peacefully on the plain. On her ponies, and they took off. Behind them, the buffalo grazed peacefully on the plain. On her ponies, and they took off. Chapter 8. Sacred Circle. The sun was going down as the 3 ponies galloped for home. The deep blue sky was streaked with golden red light. Back at the Lakota camp, the circle of teepee glowed in the setting sun. People were gathered around the large fires. Black Hawks led Jack and Danny to the camp. They got off their ponies and went over to the fire. Grandmother rose to greet them. You have been gone a great long time, she says. Black Hawk looked her bravely in the eyes. Grandmothers, I tried to hunt the buffaloes alone. Hunt the buffalo around, he says. One charged at me, but Jack saved my life. Then Annie and White Buffalo Woman stopped all the other buffalo from the stampede. Let this be the lesson for you, Grandmother says sternly. Your pride led you to show off. Showing off made you behave foolishly. Your foolishness frightened the buffalo. He frightened others. One thing's always led the others. Everything is relaxed. I'm sorry, said Black Hawk. He hung his head. I have learned. Jack felt sorry for Black Hawk. I made mistakes sometimes too, he said softly. Me too, said Annie. Grandmother looked at Jack and Danny. Buffaloes, girls, and ride like wind shows great church today, she says. Jack smiled. He loved his new logos and names. Ride like wind. We welcome you to our family, said Grandmother. The evening shadows sprayed over the camp. Someone began beating the drum. It sounded like a heartbeat. Come sit with us in our circles, said Grandmother. They sat on with her near the warm fire. He called the cold breeze blew spark into the gray twilight. An old man's hands held the long pipes up to the sky. He pointed it to the east, the south, the west, and the north. Then he passed the pipe to the next man in the circle. The man put the pipes in his lips and blew smokes in the golden firelight. Then he passed it on. The smoke from the scared pipes joined all things to the Great Spirit, Grandmother, said Jack and Annie. The Great Spirit, said Annie. The Great Spirit is the source of all things in the circle of life, said Grandmother. It's the source of all spirit. What spirit? Asked Jack. There's are many. What spirits? Asked Jack. There are many, said Grandmother. Wind spirits, tree spirits, bird spirits. Sometimes they can be seen, sometimes not. What about the white buffalo woman? Said Jack. Who is she? She's a messenger of the Great Spirit, said Grandmother. He sent her when the people were starving. She brought the scared pipe so that our prayers could rise to the Great Spirit. He answered by standing as a buffalo. Why do you think white buffalo women came to me? Asked Annie. Sometimes church can summon help from the beyond, Grandmother says. She pulled the brown and white feather from the small bucking bag. She put the feathers on the ground in front of Jack and Annie. This is the gift for you, she says, an eagle feathers of your courage. Off, Teddy wagged his tail. Jack and Danny smiled at each other. The eagle feather was their gift from the prairie blue. Their mission was complete. The chanting and drum beat grew louder and louder. Then they stopped. The old man held the pipe up to the sky. All things are relaxed, he says. The pipe smoking country was over. The sky was dark and filled with tears. One by one, people rose from the circles and went to their teepees. Jack put the eagle feathers in his bag and yawned. We better go home now, he says. You must rest first, said Grandmother. You can leave in the dawn. Good plan, said Annie. She was yawning too. They went with Grandmothers and Black Cocks to the teepees. Grandmother pointed to two buffalo robes that laid onto one side of the still burning fires. Jack and Danny reached out on them. Teddy struggled between them. Grandmother and Black Hawk laid on robes across from them. Jack watched as the bluish white smoke rose from the fires. It went up through the teepees holes and into the endless starry sky. Jack listened to the wind blowing through the grass. Shh, shh, shh. It's the voice of the Great Plains, he thought. Then he drifted off to sleep. Chapter 9. Look at Tascos. Jack felt Teddy licking his cheek. He opened his eyes. Gray light came through the smoke hole. The fire was out. The teepee was empty. Jack jumped up. He grabbed his bags and hurried out with Teddy. In the cool light before dawn, everyone was taking down their teepees. They were loading them onto wooden platforms strapped to poles. The poles were pulled by horses. Grandmother and Black Hawk piled tools and clothes onto their platforms. Annie stuffed buffalo meat into the rawhide bag. What's happening? Jack asked. It is time to follow the buffalo, said Grandmother. We will camp everywhere and somewhere else for a few weeks. Jack pulled out his notebook. He still has many questions, but he tried to choose just a few. Can you camp anywhere? He asked. Even when you don't own the land? Black Hawk laughed. People cannot own land, he says. The land belongs to the Great Spirit. Jack rode into his notebook. Land owned by Great Spirit, not people. What about school? Said Jack. Don't you have to go to school? What is school? Black Hawk asked. It's a place where kids go to learn things, Jack explained. Black Hawk laughed again. There is not only one place to learn, he says. In camp we learn to make clothes, tools, and teepees. On the plains we learn to ride and hunt. We look at the sky and learn courage from the eagle. Jack wrote, Look how fast gold is everywhere. Grandmother turned to Jack and Danny. Will you walk with us toward the sunset? She asked. Jack shook his head. We have to go to the other way, he said, toward the sunrise. Thank you for the eagle's feathers, said Annie. Let your thought rise as high as the feathers, said Grandmother. It is good matchings. What does that mean? Jack asked. Good matchings contact you to the world of spirit, he says. Jack nodded, but he still didn't really understand. Goodbye, buffalo girls, and ride like wings, said Grandmother. We wish you a safe journey. Jack and Danny waved. Then they started walking back the way they'd home. Teddy ran ahead of them. At the top of the rise, they looked back. Grandmother's Black Hawk and rest of the troops are watching. Jack and Danny both held up 2 fingers for friends. Then they took off down the slope. They ran across the prairies, through the tall whispering grass, all the way back to the treehouse. Annie put Teddy in the leather bag. She and Jack climbed up the rope ladder. They looked out the windows one last time. The oceans of grass were golden in the early sunlight. By now the locust house are walking west, Jack thought. Soon everything will change, she said sadly. The buffalo will vanish. The old way of life for the locust house will vanish too. But the Great Spirit won't ever vanish, said Annie. It will always take care of Black Hawk's peoples. Jack smiled. Annie's word made him feel better. Arf, arf, Teddy barked as if to say, Let's go. Okay, said Jack. He picked up the Pennsylvania book and pointed at the picture of the Frog Creek. I wish we could go home to our people, he said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster, and everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10. Good Mood Swings. We're home, said Annie. Bright sunlight flooded the treehouse. Teddy licked Jack and Danny's face. They were back into their jeans and t-shirts. Hey, silly, Annie said to the dog. Now we have the second things to help free you from your spells. She took the eagle feathers out of Jack's backpack. She put it on Morgan's notes next to the silver pocket watch from the Titanic. Now we have our gift from the Paris Blue, said Jack. Let your thought rise as high as these feathers. Hey, I just had a thought, said Annie. What? Said Jack. I bet Teddy had something to do with White Buffalo Woman, she says. Why? Said Jack. 1 second, Teddy disappeared in the grass. Then White Buffalo Woman appeared, said Annie. When White Buffalo Woman disappeared, Teddy appeared. Said Jack. He stared at the little dog. Teddy tattled his head and gave Jack a wise look. Well, said Jack, maybe Teddy has good matchings. Now you understand, said Annie, smiling. Jack, Annie, a call from the distance. Jack and Danny looked down the window of the treehouse. Their moms and their grandmothers were standing on the porch. "Yay, grandmother's here," said Annie. "We're coming!" they shouted together. "Let's put Teddy's in your backpack," said Annie, "so we can take him home with us this time." "Okay," said Jack. But when they turned around, the little dog was gone. "Teddy?" said Annie. There was no sign of him. "Oh man, as soon as we turned our back, he slipped away," said Jack. "Just like last time." "Don't worry," said Annie. "He'll find us again soon. I'm sure of it." She started down the rope ladder. Jack gave his pack and followed. As they started for home, the wind gusted through the trees. Jack stopped for a moment and looked at the woods. Branches waved their leaves. Bird laughed at branch and swooped into the blue skies. Blackcock's grandmother is right, he thought. All things are relaxing. "Jack," called Annie. "Coming," said Jack. He hurried to catch up with her. Together, they ran out of the Frog Creek woods, up their streets, and into their own grandmother's arms.